What's going on, guys? Welcome back. And today I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on a movie that has had countless hate spread towards it throughout the years, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I haven't rewatched the first one, but I found this movie at a store near where I live, recently, and I bought it, and I watched it again, and it's a pretty good movie. It's pretty solid, pretty fun, and enjoyable, but it's also got a lot of heart to it. And it really surprised me, this film, this isn't really a review, it's just a revisit of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and, I'll talk about the things that I really do like, and I don't think that it's an awful movie, but I also don't think it's a great film. Some of the things I really like is that this film really does have its own style. It has a flair and unique style that not a lot of films nowadays have, where they have this very, MCU movies have this very strict template that they have to, go to. This film has a style, and, the soundtrack is actually really great. I think the score is really great by Hans Zimmer. The main theme for Spider-Man in this movie is really great. In this film, I think that the main theme is really great. And then also just, some of the stuff like Electro's music that they play, this kind of weird rap thing. I know a lot of people don't like that, but when I listened to the soundtrack on its own, it sounded really weird. But in the actual film, it actually works with what they're trying to go for. And it's just I think the score is pretty good. The music's pretty good in the film. And, I really like a lot of people, I've heard people bring up that this has the best CG of all the Spider-Man films. And I would honestly agree with that. There's some shots in the new movies where it looks kind of odd, with just Tom Holland jumping around. It's not even Tom Holland, they CGI over him. In this movie, the suit, it looks fantastic, and everything about the appearance of it, all the CG, Electro, the fight scenes, which there are very few, and when they do happen, they're very short, all of it looks really solid. It actually looks pretty good. And, I think the effects are actually really good in the movie. Very well done. Andrew Garfield also is Peter Parker, and I think in this movie they're trying to say, he's more experienced. And that's definitely a difference between, from this and Tobey Maguire's and Tom Holland's Peter Parker Spider-Man. But I honestly think it really works in this movie. And especially in, the first one. Well, not actually in the first one. But in this movie in particular, he's more experienced. So he has this confidence about him whenever he does things, which makes him very fun to watch, I think. When he's doing Spider-Man stuff, they have some montages in the movie where he's doing Spider-Man things. And it's all really fun to watch because he feels so experienced and so, used to all this that it just makes it entertaining to watch. And I'm not saying that the antics of Tom Holland's Spider-Man and something like Spider-Man Homecoming are bad. Obviously that's a better film than this. But the actual, personality of Spider-Man in this movie is great. I think Andrew Garfield gets way too much hate. He's okay as Peter Parker, but I think he's a really good Spider-Man. The confidence and just the fun, and he really captures the charm of the character that I think not really any other actor has so far. The charm of an experienced Spider-Man, just really good. I think he's really good as the character. All the actors are really trying to do a good job in the movie as well. There's some really funny scenes with Peter in this movie, when he's we have to cause a distraction to Gwen, and then he goes in the hallway and he's spilling coffee all over the guy. He's oh, I'm so sorry. There's stuff like that that's really good. And obviously, the movie is not the best thing, but there's also some really great themes and stuff in this movie. And, even though this movie is a mess, and it really is, its heart is in the right place. All these movies nowadays, even as much as I hate to say it, Avengers Endgame, movies like that are trying to kind of, forcefully pull emotions out of you in this very, product-type way. Maybe people will say that about this movie, so it's not the greatest, I guess, criticism from me. But my point is that they're trying to, a lot of movies nowadays are trying to artificially pull emotions out of you, because all these movies feel kind of more like products than they ever used to. Something like Iron Man is really good at that, where it doesn't feel like a product. Before, a lot of these MCU movies started to feel like products. They're all enjoyable and entertaining, but they're starting to feel like products. This movie feels like it has the style of a certain director. It has its own personality, and it's its own thing. And maybe that doesn't work for everybody, but a lot of the stuff in this movie does work. And, like, Spider-Man 3 is a mess, and a lot of its plots aren't that well, like tied together. But all the individual plots in that movie I love. And I'm not saying and this movie is similar, but I don't nearly love this movie as much as that. But I think I brushed these movies off. I haven't rewatched the first one, but earlier in the year when I was re-reviewing these movies for Spider-Man Far From Home, I kind of glossed over these movies and said they were bad. And I think they deserve to be recognized, and I apologize for that because, like, this movie is not a horrible film by any means. Like, there are way worse comic book movies out there, like Batman vs. Superman and stuff like that. Like, those movies are just garbage. But this might even be better than some MCU movies. Like, there's some really good heart. Like, one of the best scenes in the movie is where Aunt May, which is something that is sorely lacking from Tom Holland's Spider-Man in something like Far From Home, where Aunt May, Peter is trying to get Aunt May to tell her, or tell him about what his parents were doing before, they took off and they eventually died. And she's like, I don't want to tell you, I don't want to hurt you. And then he's like, you have to tell me. And she's like, it'll hurt you. And he's like, I know. And she says, like, I don't want whatever happened to Ben to happen to you. Like, you're the last person I've left. And it's kind of something like that. That's fantastic. And that's what's missing from Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. Like, Far From Home is a movie that, it's fun and entertaining, but, like, the Aunt May thing that they had in Homecoming where they ended that movie on a cliffhanger, and then in Far From Home, they just picked it up and Aunt May's perfectly fine with him being, like, Spider-Man. It doesn't work. And that's one of my biggest problems with Far From Home. And people that say that Far From Home is the best Spider-Man movie seem to forget that Homecoming existed. And they're just saying, oh, this movie does all these things great, but they're kind of forgetting that Homecoming did them first. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. This movie, that scene is fantastic. It's one of the best scenes in the movie, and it's something that I think it does a lot better than something like Far From Home, in particular. And, even the villains, like, what's his name? Dane DeHaan as Green Goblin. He's kind of shoved in. I understand that point. Like, he's very shoved into the movie. He just kind of shows up at the end, and he's like, oh, I have to be evil, or whatever. Oh, and it's kind of like, okay, whatever. But Electro's honestly a pretty decent villain. Like, I wish they come up to a better resolution to his character than just blowing him up, which is kind of what they had to do, because, they had to put in Harry Osborn at the end to just show up, because, we set him up, you have to put him in. So that's one of the problems that they had, but I think that's just the directors, once again, pushing on Mark Webb to do what they wanted him to do, and not letting him do everything. And like I said, there are things in this movie that feel like a certain director's vision, but that definitely feels forced. And if they just narrowed down and made Electro the main villain, rather than worrying about setting up more movies, they could have definitely made that better, which I agree with. But, the Electro character, like, even, like, Dr. Connors in the first film, like, he's just, like, he wants to regrow his arm, and then he just becomes the Lizard, and then he's, like, evil for no reason. He has, like, no motivation. But in this movie, like, Electro, his arc is, like, he doesn't really have an arc after he turns evil, but, like, the character, it makes sense. The character's, like, turn to darkness, even though it may be a little exaggerated, the movie definitely doesn't always take itself seriously in every way. So it kind of works for me. It's a little weird, like, it's a little jarring, but, like, the character was never, when I was thinking about, people point out that when he gets angry at Spider-Man is when all the cameras in Times Square turn to Spider-Man rather than him. It's like a tech malfunction because of all the electricity. And that scene, he's just scared. He's kind of almost losing his mind. And that was kind of the tipping point for his character, where he's like, okay, I have to just. He was scared. He didn't know what to do. And then the whole movie, you just see all these people being mean to him and treating him like garbage. And then that's kind of just just where he just snaps, And that works, because he wanted to be noticed. He wanted people to know it was his birthday. And when Spider-Man, the one person that he thought was, like, he's obviously an unstable person, and everyone thought he was, like he looks up to him as this great person. And when he thinks that one person is trying to take away his fame, and he says, you're so selfish, that works. And there's a deleted scene and stuff and even some scenes in this movie, where you're like, you see him like get mad at these people and like grab them by the shirt collar and like, how dare you say that about Spider-Man? And and then you just realize that's just in his head, and he's like, oh, okay, and he walks away. That shows the anger that he has stored up inside him. So in that degree, I think the character's better. I just wish they'd come up to a better resolution for the villain. But overall, the Electro character is pretty decent, honestly, I think. I just wish they'd focus more on him rather than shoving in Green Goblin and that whole plot line. And just the whole plot line about Peter Parker's parents adds to that great emotional scene with Aunt May. But other than that, the lead up to it is like he just goes to the subway and his dad is like, I'm recording this message for my son Peter. And like this scene actually made me tear up a bit. And I thought it was pretty well done. But it's kind of stupid because it's like they show the audience at the beginning what happened to his parents. So that doesn't hold as much weight as it possibly could. I don't know. It's still a pretty decent scene overall, but that could have definitely been done better. And, you know, the theme throughout the movie is time and, like, the importance of time and, you know, holding on to hope. And it's not like, you know, like a very, like, there are people that point out these themes in the MCU that are actually more pronounced than I thought they were. Or these very subtle things. It's not a subtle message by any means, but it is true. And what it has to say, and it's very like upfront about saying it, and it's like, oh, we gotta. So it's not like subtle, and it's very up in your face, but it is true. The theme they're trying to present of, you know, time is important, and, you know, like eventually, you know, we'll all run out of time, and we just have to like enjoy the time that we have. That's really important, and I think that it's very special that this movie touched on that. And, you know, the scene where Gwen dies and he's holding her, and it's very sad. It's very emotional, and it's great, and very well done. And you know, and then the ending. Sure, they ended on jokes, but the jokes are pretty good, and then just ending with that amazing score again, the dun 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 dun, just really, really good, just really solid ending. I know that Rhino showing up is forced, and they had to whatever put in the trailer. As a person that wasn't like really offended by that, it's still a pretty cool ending. I wish we could have seen what the vision of the third one would have been, but you know. That's fine, you know. So, let me know. Would you like me to revisit the first Amazing Spider-Man movie? I'll try and revisit it. I think it's the only Spider-Man movie I don't own so far. I actually got Venom recently and rewatched that movie again. Venom's not great, but it's fun in a bad way. But this movie, it's not even like I like it in a guilty pleasure way. I just kind of respect this movie for taking a risk. And, you know, sure, it doesn't work for everybody, but a lot of stuff in this movie works for me. And almost more stuff works for me than it doesn't in this movie. And I think the amount of hate it's gotten is a little bit, just a little bit over the top. You know, a lot of the criticisms I do agree with, but there is some really deep, good things in this movie that it touches on that a lot of people don't seem to recognize. So, in that degree, I think Amazing Spider-Man 2 is a solid movie. I think I'd give it like a B- or something. And you're like, oh, you thought I was going to give it an A+. Like, no, it is definitely a flawed movie, and there are better movies out there, but I don't think it's a terrible movie. I don't think it's like, oh my god, it's the worst thing ever. Like, there are really good things in this movie, and I think that it deserves to be recognized. It had big ambitions, and it doesn't always work and excel or, like execute those ambitions in the best way. But the stuff that it does execute well, it executes really well, I think. So don't make it no like I don't love this movie. It's not like, I'm sorry if I made it seem like I was like praising this movie, because there are a lot of problems that I probably didn't bring up. But I wanted to talk about, for once, for me, who's known to be kind of critical, like who's known to be pretty like violently critical of films such as Avengers Endgame. I thought it would be nice for me to kind of make a video about a less popular film and discuss what I really like about it. So that's my opinions on The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and why I think it's definitely a pretty overly hated film. But yeah, you guys please let me know your thoughts on The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And maybe revisit it yourself. Like, revisit it yourself and then tell me, like, what do you think of it upon rewatch? Like, I don't think you'll find it nearly as bad as some people have been saying. And I definitely thought it was bad, and I said it was bad, and I went along with the hate. But I think it still has some really enjoyable aspects, some very fun aspects, and also some very deep aspects as well. So please let me know your thoughts on The Amazing Spider-Man 2 in the comments, and what you thought of the video as well. And I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.